Since its initial release back in 1993, the Lexus GS has been an extremely influential car in modern car culture. And sadly, due to diminishing sales, Lexus killed off the GS nameplate for the 2021 model year. So with Lexus no longer offering a brand new Grand Sedan, let's take a look at what I think is possibly the best generation of GS, but for a fact, the last generation of Lexus GS, the 4th gen. This GS 350 in particular belongs to my friend Paul, Michael's dad. It's a 2015 GS 350 F Sport with all-wheel drive painted in ultra white. This is a very pretty spec. These GSs really only came in two different trim levels. Base, which was a more luxury-oriented model, and the F Sport, which was still optimized towards luxury, but it was more of an appearance package than anything. Now, I would kind of consider myself an enthusiast for these cars, and I can confidently say that a 2015 GS is probably the best year of the 4th gen, because you get fancy things like power folding mirrors, a heated steering wheel, and you can even option adaptive cruise control in some. There were a few wheel options back in the day for GS 350s, especially pre-facelift GS 350s. Base spec GSs could choose between two different designs of 18-inch alloy wheel. I see both of them just as frequently on the road, and F Sport models will have these 19s which have a nice dark gray finish to them. Really makes this look sporty. Something that I know a lot of people have definitely noticed about GSs, even in the past, because I had a 2nd gen GS, is how tall these ride. The all-wheel drive GSs actually ride a little bit higher than a rear-wheel drive GS. Sadly, unlike the 3rd gen GS, the 4.6 wasn't carried over for the 4th gen, but Lexus did offer a GS 450h hybrid, which used the same 3.5 V6 as the GS 350, but was paired to a hybrid system. Those could get up to 40 mpg and also 340 horsepower. This, on the other hand, is the most common power plant in the GS. Wow, that hood opens really soft. But in the GS, and also just in every other V6 powered Lexus. So this is the world-renowned 2GR FKS. It's a 3.5 liter dual overhead cam V6. It makes 306 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque in this GS 350. Later years got up to 311 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. This uses a 6-speed automatic transmission. The rear-wheel drive GS 350 actually uses an 8-speed auto, which is supposed to handle a little bit better than this, but this is a 6-speed, which is still a pretty capable transmission. Power is also going to all 4 wheels in this model using a full-time all-wheel drive system with an actual center case. Most of the time these use a 70-30 power split, with 70% of power going to the rear wheels and 30 to the front. But in either bad weather or under full throttle, the GS can do up to 50% of power to the front and 50 to the rear. Interestingly enough, and I don't know how many of these are out there, rear-wheel drive GS 350 F Sports could get an optional rear-wheel steering package. These GSs really are mid-sized, especially if you consider trunk space. A BMW 5 Series of the same year can only hold up to 10 cubic feet of volume, which is pretty small. On the other hand, the GS 350 has up to 14.3 cubic feet of volume, and I'm really thankful for this, but Lexus even offers this with a spare tire. It is a donut, but it is a spare tire, and everyone, at least that stays around the channel, knows how pissed off I get about those stupid cans of Fix-A-Flat. Some of these GS 350s could also get a power opening and closing trunk lid. Pretty fancy. I've only seen that in the post-facelift GSs, so 2016 and newer, but that feature is out there. As you would expect for a Grand Sedan and one of these mid-size luxury saloons, the GS offers quite a bit of room in the back. And also, it does feel of quality. The doors close with a nice solid thunk. The materials in the back are nice. There's LEDs here. In terms of legroom and headroom, I'm 5'9" and I can fit my feet under the seat. The driver's seat is in the position that I sit in, and I have decent legroom. decent headroom as well, because these don't have pano sunroofs. I would really say this is more of a 4-seater car, at least in terms of adults, because of this center hump over here. The seat bottoms themselves are very comfortable. My thighs are actually pretty well supported. The seats are like buckets. In terms of amenities, there's no third zone for the climate, but there are 2 air vents, and there is a power outlet underneath that. In each door, there's also an ashtray that isn't an ashtray. Maybe a coin pouch for people that need to put their coins in the back seat as well. But there is a center armrest, which is nicely padded, feels very nice. There's a little compartment in the front here. And the center console is actually pretty big for a rear seat console. There's also 2 cup holders in the front here, which are reasonably sized. You could fit a reasonably sized cup in here, but this was my car. Nobody is eating in my car. The best seat of the house, of course, because this is a Grand Sedan. And of course, if you haven't noticed by now, Grand Sedan, well, GS stands for Grand Sedan. This is almost a 10-year-old car. Granted, this does have only 65,000 miles, but it still feels so well built. 65K is brand new to me, so I'm not gonna judge anything like that. The steering wheel is 3-spoked and leather wrapped. It's actually a different steering wheel than non-F Sport GS 350s. There are a few buttons on the wheel, but I like that Lexus kept them minimal. The left side controls the volume and tuning function, and the right side controls the Bluetooth and also what shows up on the center display on the gauges. Now, speaking of the gauges, they're also analog, which is not a bad thing. Lexus gauges have always been quite beautiful looking to me. There's not that much in there, and there's a small information display in the middle that mostly shows stuff about fuel economy, average speed, tire pressure, just the basics. Behind the steering wheel, there's 2 paddle shifters, and the headlights are automatic, and also the wipers. One of the many strong suits of the 4th Gen GS is comfort. The seats are so comfortable. This one actually has an upgraded driver's seat, so it has all kinds of adjustments like bolstering and lumbar and even thigh extension as well. Again, they're super comfortable. It's perforated black leather. In some of these you could get red leather, which is a little bit gaudy for me, but the driver and passenger side seats are heated and cooled. These 4th gens will always have somewhat timeless interiors to me. Of course, the infotainment is a little bit dated, especially nowadays, because it uses the awful Lexus trackpad now. The newer ones use a touchpad, but this isn't a touchscreen. It is a large 12.3-inch display, but no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Lexus didn't add that. Lexus didn't add that into the GS at all, I don't think. But this is an older version of the Lexus Enform system. It's okay. I really don't like using the mouse because it is just so finicky, even getting used to it. This one also lets you adjust the climate control inside the infotainment as well, but the climate control has hard touch buttons as well, thankfully. It's dual zone and also automatic, and the physical buttons are quite easy to use, and everything that you need is right down here. Kind of annoyingly, Lexus has never really prioritized cup holders and storage. There's 2 cup holders in front of the shifter over here. There are some storage pockets on the doors themselves and also in the dash, like a little coin tray. The center console is reasonably sized, but it's not too huge. There's 2 USB ports, an aux jack, and a power outlet. The center armrest itself is actually pretty comfortable though. It's nice and soft, and there's some stitching on it. If you slide it back ever so slightly, there's actually 2 buttons underneath this. There's one that controls the parking sensors, and the other one controls the power rear sunshade. There is a backup camera, and like I said, this does have parking sensors. The quality of the camera, surprisingly for 2015 Lexus, this is actually pretty good. It does have guidance lines that steer with the wheel, but only one view. I think some GSs do have 360 view cameras, but I don't see it that often. There's also a few drive modes in the GS. The F Sport adds a Sport Plus mode though, but there's an Eco, Normal, Sport, and Sport Plus mode. There's also a Snow mode that starts the car in 2nd gear, and also makes the car do a 50-50 power split. This also has a standard size moonroof. It also has garage home link, LED interior lights, and That's really it. Let's drive the bitch. So I've driven a lot of base or normal spec GS 350s over their course of life, and I've not actually driven an F Sport, at least a pre-facelift F Sport, and this is actually the GS that I would buy myself. But since this is a sporty sedan, let us see. Wow. So manual mode, the car actually listens to you. I figured that out with the IS 350. So the paddles aren't that quick. Now, of course, it is a big car, but it is extremely confidence-inspiring. It's honestly such a much, since there's a person in front of me, I'm gonna slow down. But it is such a much better driving car than the IS 350 that I just drove. The steering in this, I'm not exactly sure if there is a big difference. I'm sure this is electric steering, but it just has a much better weight to it, and it actually feels like I'm driving a real car. This is just so much more fun. Oh my, this is gonna make me kind of want one of these. I considered one of these a few years ago before I bought my S60 T6. This is a great daily driver because it has all the fun elements of a weekend corner carver, but it's also super comfortable and quite posh and elegant at the same time, especially in F Sport trim. At least for enthusiasts, if you want something more fun to drive but also comfortable, this is a great medium between something super sporty like a 550i or even a 535i M Sport or an A6 with the 3-liter. This is a great car. Even driving it normally, the 2GR is such a smooth engine. Now I know Toyota's used the 2GR for forever, and they've really used it forever, but it is a really good engine. In this car, it feels the most at home. In the IS 350, I don't know much about the second gen because I've not driven those, but the IS just felt a little bit too taut for me. I'm gonna put myself into sport mode and go down here. It's fun. Wow, and it corners in great. This really handles well. I'm just letting you listen to the noise because the car is kind of speaking for itself right now, and I'm letting it do it. Now I know, especially because of its size, this is not a track day car at all, but this is like one of the best daily drivable cars that you could drive it across the country, do a track day, you know, wherever you go, and then come back and be super comfortable. We're gonna go back into Sport Plus. Even in Sport Plus, it's really comfortable. The steering does firm up. You can notice the steering firm up. The transmission gets a little bit more aggressive when it comes to shifting because it holds the gears a little bit longer. Goodness me, it is like, and it kicks down so, it's invigorating. This is a good car. Let's see. You can feel that it's more rear biased. What an excellent car. Let's see here. This is fun to drive. And you can feel it push a little bit. Again, I'm letting the car speak for itself because, like, it is actually good fun. You can feel the rear end come out a bit, and it's actually very confidence-inspiring. It gives you such a sure-footed feeling. Even a third gear roll like this. The paddles, when you're in normal drive mode, are not that responsive, but once you click it into manual mode, it's much more awake and agile. Wow. Like seriously, for being such a big car, this thing steers better than my old GS 430. Now I do realize when it comes to daily driving a car, you're driving it normally most of the time, and the GS is very composed and very good at being a luxury car when you don't want it to be a sporty car. The suspension takes bumps very well. Of course, I know the camera is shaking. I need to buy a new camera mount, well, a better camera mount, but I myself am super comfortable. It is just such a well-balanced car. If I needed something that needed to check off every box in one, like, you know, you could drive it all seasons because it's all-wheel drive. It's fun to drive on back roads because it handles wonderfully. You could take it on thousands of miles of road trips, or even just commute to work in it because it's so comfortable. This one checks off every box. Plus, it'll do this in style, and also it'll do it for the longest, because you could get some of these, you could get a GS 350 up to God knows how many miles. I've seen some of them with 350,000 miles in the 4th gen GS group. That's a shout out to you guys. But some of these, like, I've seen people with like 600,000 miles with theirs. And this one only has 65? This has a long way ahead of its life, or a long way ahead of, it has a long way ahead. Although the GS 350 has been out for quite a while, even enough that Lexus has killed it off, rest in peace, because this is really a good car. I'm glad that I've finally been able to show you a GS 350, because these are really excellent used cars today. These also hold their value really well, because one like this with around 60,000 miles today is still going for around 30 grand or more. But I won't talk too much about 4GS ownership. If you have one of these, let me know in the comments below, or any GS, because I would say I'm a GS enthusiast. I quite appreciate these cars. But once again, thanks to Paul for letting us look at his GS today, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe for many videos just like this to come, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye peeps.